People aren't always exactly who they portray themselves to be. Who would believe that some on-screen heroes are, in fact, hideous villains in real life? People who commit scandalous, offensive and heinous crimes and then end up in jail. From Ryan Grantham, who shot his own mother in the back of the head while she was playing the piano in their British Columbian home, to Josh Duggar, who molested numerous children. Several TV stars have perpetrated heinous acts like sex crimes, drug-related crimes, and even murder. And while some have admitted to breaking the law, others have claimed their innocence. Either way, they'll be locked up for a pretty long time. This is a list of 17 actors currently rotting in jail. The 17th and the very first on our list is Michael Jace Smiling. On May 19, 2014, at Jace's home in the Hyde Park area of Los Angeles, Jace shot his wife April, an elite medal-winning sprinter, in the back as their sons looked on from their bedroom. Prosecutors said Jace then proceeded to shoot his wife in the legs before telling her, "If you like running, then run to heaven." The prosecutors further contended that Jace, who had been drinking all day, was obsessed with the idea his wife might leave him and believed she was having an affair. According to report, Jace was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. At his sentencing, Jace said, "There is absolutely no justification for my actions on that night. I am profoundly sorry for the pain that I've caused everyone." Jace is currently serving his sentence at California State Prison Corcoran. Next is Joseph Sun. In 2008, Sun was arrested for felony vandalism when he kicked in the door of his roommate's car. As part of a plea deal, Sun was required to provide a DNA sample to the authorities. When his sample was run through the system, much to their surprise, it linked him to a horrific, nearly 2-decade-old cold case. On Christmas Eve in 1990, he and an accomplice pretended to be lost as they approached a 19-year-old woman walking her dog. They then threw her into their car and held her hostage for hours, beating and raping her. Sun also repeatedly threatened to shoot her as he counted the bullets in his gun. At the trial, the victim recounted how Sun said, "He was giving me to himself as a Christmas present." Sun was convicted of 1 count of felony torture. The statute of limitations had run out on the sexual assault charges, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Unfortunately, just a month after beginning his sentence, Sun killed his cellmate, Michael Thomas Graham. He was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to an additional 27 years. Number 15. Harvey Weinstein. After years of rumors, the New York Times published an investigation into Weinstein featuring the accounts of over a dozen women accusing the producer of sexual harassment and abuse. On May 25, 2018, the New York District Attorney's Office charged Weinstein with rape, criminal sex act, sex abuse, and sexual misconduct for incidents involving 2 separate women. Among those who testified against Weinstein at the trial was actor Annabella Sciorra, who said that Weinstein burst into her apartment after dinner and raped her. Weinstein was found guilty and sentenced to 23 years in jail. He subsequently was tried in Los Angeles for more crimes and sentenced to 16 additional years. Weinstein is serving his sentence in New York State's Mohawk Correctional Facility. Number 14. Josh Duggar. In 2016, In Touch magazine obtained a police report that implicated Duggar as having molested numerous children, including his sisters, when he was a teenager. The release of the police report eventually led to a federal investigation of Duggar. After the authorities found child sexual abuse images on Duggar's computer, they arrested Duggar on federal charges of receiving and possessing child sexual abuse images. Duggar was found guilty and sentenced to 12 years and 7 months in prison. He is serving his sentence at the Federal Correctional Facility, FCI Seagoville in Texas, and won't be eligible for possible release until October 2, 2032, at number 13. Danny Masterson. In 2017, the Los Angeles Police Department began a sexual assault investigation into Masterson after 3 women came forward with allegations against him. In each case, all of which occurred at Masterson's home between 2001 to 2003, the women said Masterson gave them alcohol and then, when they became under the influence, took them to his bedroom and violently raped them. Masterson, who claimed innocent, was arrested on 3 counts of forcible rape in early 2021. A first trial in 2022 ended in a hung jury. A retrial the following year ended with Masterson convicted of 2 of the 3 counts of forcible rape. He was sentenced to 30 years to life, with the earliest possibility of being paroled coming after serving 25.5 years. Number 12. Amy Locane. On the night of June 27, 2010, Locane was driving 53 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone when she crashed into a car driven by Fred Seaman, who was making a left-hand turn into his driveway. Seaman's wife, Helene, was killed in the accident. When police arrived, Locane, who had been drinking at a friend's barbecue, was found to have a .23 blood alcohol level, more than 3 times the legal limit. Locane was convicted of second-degree vehicular homicide and assault by auto, but received a sentence of only 3 years in jail, 2 less than the minimum sentence for the offence. Locane, who joined Alcoholics Anonymous after the crash and is now sober, served 3 years behind bars before being paroled on June 12, 2015. But an appeals court subsequently found her initial sentence to be too lenient and resentenced her to 8 years in jail on September 17, 2020. She's currently incarcerated in New Jersey's Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women and is eligible for parole on deck. 2024. Number 11. Ryan Grantham. Grantham was a once successful child actor, notably for playing Rodney James in the 2010 movie Diary of a Wimpy Kid. On March 31, 2020, the then 21-year-old Grantham killed his mother by shooting her in the back of her head as she played piano in their British Columbia home. He then loaded up his car with guns and ammunition and began driving east with a plan to kill Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He ultimately changed his mind and considered carrying out a mass shooting at his alma mater, Simon Fraser University, before deciding to turn himself in. According to Grantham's lawyer, Grantham was assessed by 2 court-appointed psychiatrists who agreed that at the time of this horrendous event, he, Grantham, was suffering from a major depressive disorder and a cannabis use disorder, among other things. Grantham pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and, at his sentencing, pledged to spend his life rehabilitating himself and helping others. He is eligible for parole in 2036 after serving 14 years. For this unfortunate actors, life has taken a dark turn where they're stripped of their Hollywood glitz and glamour and placed into the cold, unforgiving confines of prison cells. At number 10. Zach Avery. Although he wasn't the most famous or talented actor, he had big dreams. After some years in the industry, he ventured in con artistry with hopes of making a fortune. Between 2014 to 2019, he managed to convince hundreds of people, including close friends and family alike, to give him lots of money. Employing his enhanced skill of smooth talking, he persuaded his victims to buy supposedly movie rights that would be shown on reputable platforms like Netflix and HBO. With the Ponzi scheme he created, he was able to pay old investors with money from new investors and keep the hoax running. Eventually, the law caught up with him, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. At number 9, Skylar Julius DeLeon. Skylar, a once promising actor in the 1990s, also had big dreams with a sparkle in his eye for great fortunes. In April 2009, Skylar Julius DeLeon and Jennifer Henderson were convicted of charges relating to their murders. DeLeon was sentenced to death, while Henderson was sentenced to 2 terms of life in prison without parole. 2 other people, John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Alonzo McChain, were convicted separately of the killings. Kennedy was sentenced to death, and Mashane accepted a plea bargain after testifying for the prosecution in the trials of Dealin, Henderson and Kennedy. He was sentenced to 20 years and 4 months in prison. At 8, Drew Drexel. Drew Drexel, the American Ninja Warrior, was edited out of Season 12 of the NBC competition after being charged with sex offences that could have led to life in prison, has agreed to plead guilty to 2 felonies. According to US court reports, the charges came from a US attorney who claimed Drew met a young fan at an event and later invited her to his gym, where they had sex when she was 15 and he was 26. Drew is currently being held at the Federal Detention Center in Philadelphia. 7. Shannon Richardson. Richardson worked in television and film roles, including The Walking Dead. In May 2013, while going through a divorce, Richardson called the police and falsely accused her husband, Nathan Richardson, of mailing letters laced with the poison ricin to US President Barack Obama and New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg and Mark Glaze. She was convicted and sentenced to 18 years imprisonment in July 2014. On November 22nd, Richardson reached a plea agreement on 3 counts. On December 10th, she pleaded guilty and was sent to the Texas State Prison System. After most of her charges were dropped, Richardson was convicted of the charge pertaining to manufacture and possession of a biological weapon and sentenced to 18 years in prison, $367,222 in restitution, $100 special assessment fee for psychological testing. Number 6. Colin Walker. Walker was arrested in Los Angeles in September 2018 and accused of a series of sexual assaults dating back to 2016. He was arraigned a month later on 9 felony sexual assault charges and was held on more than $1 million bail before eventually being released. The Los Angeles rapper and actor, known for his role in the famous 2018 film Superfly, was handed a hard sentence of 50 years in prison. Walker was convicted of 3 counts of forcible rape, 1 count of assault to commit oral copulation, 2 counts of statutory rape, and 2 counts of rape by intoxication. Number 5. Zara Fithian. Zara Fithian, who appeared in Doctor Strange, sexually abused a 13-year-old girl together with her husband Victor Mark. Mark also sexually abused a 15-year-old girl on his own. At Nottingham Crown Court, Fithian, who is 37, was jailed for 8 years, while her husband, 59, was sentenced to 14 years in prison early this year. Toby Willis on number 4. Toby Willis, the patriarch of TLC's former reality show The Willis Family, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child rape. Willis's victims were between 9 and 12 years old at the time of the abuse. He received 25-year sentences on 2 of the rape counts and 40-year sentences on the other 2 counts. The 4 sentences will run concurrently and be served in their entirety. Hence, Willis will be in prison for 40 years. Next up at number 3 is Ian Watkins. Watkins' abuse and misconduct with children was reported as early as 2008 to South Wales Police, though the authorities repeatedly failed to act upon any leads linking Watkins to these allegations. Watkins' former bandmates claimed they were unaware of his conduct as his drug use had begun to cause heavy strain on his relationship with them. Watkins was apprehended twice for drug-related charges and illicit possession of obscene image of a child. Justice John Royce handed down a 29-year prison sentence to Watkins, allowing him to be eligible for parole in 2031 after serving 2/3 of his term and followed by 6 years of supervised release. Our next is a 2-in-1, Todd and Julie Chrisley. The married couple are reality TV stars known for their show Chrisley Knows Best. They were convicted of fraud and tax evasion in 2022. Todd was found guilty of conspiracy to commit bank fraud, tax fraud, and conspiracy to defraud the United States, and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Julie was found guilty of conspiracy to commit bank fraud, tax fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice, and was initially sentenced to 7 years in prison. This culminated on June 7, 2022, with the both of them being found guilty on all counts, though with separate sentences. CNN states that Todd's 12-year sentence is being spent at FPC Pensacola, as Julie spends her sentence of 7 years at FMC Lexington, Kentucky. In 2023, the couple's prison sentences were shortened, with Todd expected to be released in 2033 and Julie in 2028. They were accused of fraudulently obtaining millions of dollars in loans and hiding income from the IRS. And finally, sitting on the #1 spot of this list is Tim Norman. James Timothy Norman was found guilty by a jury in US District Court in September of conspiracy to commit murder for hire, and conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud in the fatal shooting of 20-year-old Andre Montgomery Jr. on March 14, 2016. Norman and Montgomery appeared on the reality show Welcome to Sweetie Pies. Norman took out a life insurance policy worth $450,000 on Montgomery, then arranged through intermediaries for his nephew's murder at 3964 Natural Bridge Avenue in St. Louis. Tim Norman sought to make $450,000 by having his nephew Andre Montgomery killed. Instead, he was caught and will spend the rest of his life in prison. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Do leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Also, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye for now.